Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your friend Dharam Singh. And how are you going, guys? I can see lots of familiar faces, familiar names that you attended my program or you're going to attend the program, which is always good to see. Um, Welcome, all of you. I'm very happy to see you here. And welcome, Joel. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Can't be better than this because I have the best person in the world today with me, talking about his experience as a PgMP, as well as working as a program manager, portfolio manager, coming from experience of U.S. Army. Um, so can't be better.
Yeah, feel the same.
Yeah, so Joel is coming with lots of huge experience working as the operation manager for U.S. Army, and you got certification, PgMP certified now, 17th of February 2025, and you are based out of Seattle. I don't have to tell you, I'm telling everybody else that you are based out of Seattle.
Yep.
And so more than 15 years of leadership experience across the military, government, consulting sectors. So your experience is aligning with technical, operational, with strategic vision. And that's going to be our questions around his experience in that area. So, Joe, welcome. Would you like to say something about yourself?
Sure. Kind of following up with what he was saying, my Army career, right? So I started as an enlisted man and then eventually I got commissioned as an armor officer in the Army. And so I wanted to join the Army. This is kind of a funny story, simply because I wanted to kick down doors and do all the cool guy infantry stuff. And I did not get the infantry job. Instead, they gave me a tank and they sent me to the field with PowerPoints and spreadsheets. And I did not have a good time that first time. So that said, what I did wind up learning as kind of time progressed. I spent 5 years, 10 years in the Army, and then I started kind of looking at graduate education, kind of continuing education, and figuring out how to best prepare myself for the next role. I came across project management as a discipline, and that was also by mistake because I really wanted to sign up for a master's in business administration. But in the sign up process, I think either I messed up or my advisor messed up and she signed me up for project management and operations, which was master's in science. I looked at it, got scared, and I said, no, I don't want to be a scientist. I want to do MBA. And then I told my wife about it. She kind of made fun of me like, you can't do math. And I was like, you know what? Just because you said that, I'm going to go ahead and be a project manager now. And so I started. Uh, so I started getting into the coursework and I started really looking at what a project charter is and all of the artifacts that go along with it and kind of the discipline through PMI. And then I kind of had an epiphany. The Army does nothing but project management day and day out. For those in the crowd that, have the Army background, if you ever done anything that has an operations order attached to it, I mean, that's just a project charter when you look at it, right? Like, what's the situation? It's a business case. What's the mission? There's the actual thing that the project is doing. What is the execution paragraph? Well, it's everything that talks about the project scope and the project outcomes and the acceptance criteria. The commander's intent, purpose, key task, and end state. And then you go along with the execution paragraph with the concept of the operation. And like, that's all just project charter, like in and of itself. And then when you start thinking about it in the kind of program context, and I think this is where the Army can grow a little bit maybe. The operations order doesn't really account for managing separate projects as they kind of become interrelated in the way that we think about it in programs. The program charter, the program benefits management, program benefits realization, and everything of that nature, that all can also be derived from those same planning documents and planning methodologies that we have in the Army. So all that to really say, this big epiphany of mine, and when I was in company command, and I looked at this, and I'm suddenly realizing that, oh yeah, like there's this whole other kind of framework and way of thinking about how we do things day to day, how we plan, how we performance track, how we budget manage, how we do everything. So I jumped into it head first, and I got my master's in it. And then I started kind of looking at obtaining the PMP and obtaining the PgMP. So the PMP was a challenging one for me because I was studying for it during my transition out of the Army a couple of years ago. And then the Army said, no, you can't get out. So I'm still in. And then, you know, I stopped studying during the transition, but my time was running out. So I said, oh my God, I got to go take this exam. I went and took it, failed the first time. And then I looked at the scores and I was like, well, I failed it probably by one question. So let me go take it again, but I'm going to study this time. And I did, and I passed it. So then the PgMP was a very similar story, except that I was more busy with exercises than I was with transitioning out of the Army. And so I went and took the exam with not having prepared as much as I should have. And then I failed it the first time. And then I looked at the questions, probably failed it by more than one, probably like 2 or 3. But then I said to myself, you know what? The Army pays for prep courses. Why don't I just sign up for a prep course? So I did some research. I started looking around and I started looking at some of the more known entities that were out there, and I said, you know what, this one looks like the right one, and the schedule aligns with what with what my schedule looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up, and I'm going to apply for the tuition assistance or the credentialing assistance through the military. So I got that set up very last minute, got it paid for, went through the course, and probably what helped me the most, to be honest, is the back and forth with the questions and about the questions with Dharam that we did during the course. And like, I don't know if you remember, but like just about every single question I kind of drilled down and I said, yeah, I got a question. So can you explain this a little further? Can you explain that? Because while there are a lot of similarities with, you know, the Army and the way that the PMI, you know, structures project program management, the jargon is way different. And so part of the skill of, you know, translating what I've learned with the Army, with PMI, is getting into the nitty gritty about what everything means. And so that helped a lot. I went back and took the exam about a month after the prep course, and I passed it this time. So now I am officially a certified PgMP. Very happy about it.
Great, great. Good to hear the story and journey, and how I like that the way you got into the project management.
Yeah,
So I'm sure everybody has some story around how you got into project management. Nobody, look, you know, we have been growing up, we talk about doctor, engineer, and this architect and all kind of things, but nobody talked about project manager, program management. And
right.
most of the people, accidental project managers, and yours is like forced, which you, oh, this is something I really love it.
Yep.
So great, good to know this. Thank you for sharing. One thing you know, I'm proud of now. I have my app called vCare PM Exam Mentor, which is covering PgMP, PfMP, PMP, RMP, and ACP at the moment. So lots of hard work goes into these apps with question bank, practice test, and confusion busters, glossary, formulas, and daily questions you get, and so many things happening in that. So if you have not seen, I might recommend my request you to download the app and start doing something, and especially if you're preparing for any of these exams, or maybe, you know, for fun, why not? Some of the things can be still useful for you as even a PgMP PfMP, and some of the things you can buy for ongoing learning purpose. And I have added a couple of videos where, you know, the video is a little bit old now, where I was talking about what is PgMP and PfMP, so maybe it can be useful. And I've shared 2 YouTube links where you will see this video as well. You know, the recording of this will also go into one of the channel. So probably have more than 300 recordings in that YouTube channel. Just like Joel, many other people came, and I can see a couple of people who have already contributed to that knowledge pool. So you are more than welcome to go and watch and listen to those recordings. Some of the recordings can give you PDUs as well, especially the last 1 year. And you know, if that were recorded last 1 year, most likely you can get a PDU as well. For like this program will give you one PDU. We'll be sharing the PDU code a little later. And people watching this as recording, you have to request us for the PDU code. So that will be offered to you as long as this is within the next 1 year, let's say 2026, May 2026. Okay. And I have also shared one coupon code, which will save you probably like $100 to most of the programs we have. So if you are planning to join some of our programs, please use the code. You will save something out of this, and do it sooner so that before this code goes away. Okay. All right, that's aside. Now let's come back to you, Joel. Again, once again, thank you for accepting my invite. And given that your profile, I think you have a lot to share. and I'm really looking forward to see how much I can extract out of you. My job is to extract out as much as I can, put in the knowledge pool so people can keep learning from this ongoing learning process. Okay, all right. Okay, so Joel, let me get started with today's webinar. The
Yep.
topic for us today is tactical program manager. So we are revolving around tactical and how tactical and strategic program managers and how we can get most out of this. Okay, so my first question is, how do you define tactical leadership within the context of complex program environment, and how does it evolve at the enterprise level?
All right, thanks for the question. So in the context of programs, tactics are planned activities deliberately executed to achieve a predetermined end. Now, expanding on the definition, we take into account, right, that a program is a centralized management of interrelated projects to optimize human, financial, equipment resources, and generate benefits for an organization. Now, tactical project management is well defined in PMI's literature. PMI offers the 7th edition of the PIM book guide, which gives project managers the industry's practice and expectations. Next, the PMI provides a slew of practice guides that include the work breakdown structures, scheduling, risk management, etc., as a template for developing processes, tactics, techniques, procedures to manage each project. While project managers are building their plans with these tools, program managers focus their tool sets on a wider organization and external stakeholders. Think of them being up and out while project managers are down and in. The catch is there's always a blend between the two. So project management work may bleed into being up and out as needs arise to manage stakeholders with high influence to impact project work. However, in organizations running program level offices, there should be similar artifacts whose content are different based on changing characteristics between the projects and programs. At the enterprise level, it's essential for project and program managers to be experts in their craft with complete dominion over project and program management tools and methods. And that's because the program management staff will often be the only advocates for its structured methods, and you will find resistance to anything labeled management. So tactical leaders then need to leverage the cumulative knowledge of the science behind program and project management to carry out verbal and written communication with all team members and stakeholders in a way that's non-threatening and relationship enhancing to their listeners. So picture discussing a negative influence event from an external stakeholder to a program committee. The project manager or program manager may take an identified stakeholder in the register, create a stakeholder communication management plan to reduce probability negative impacts and still have the negative event occur. When addressing the committee, you can't simply out the stakeholder because of the potential for negative follow-on repercussions, but rather the program manager must skillfully describe the situation and provide a recommendation which would already have been analyzed and simulated for outcomes to get the program back on track.
Good, thank you. All right, this is going to take me to next question. This is about you led consulting program and operation units. How do you ensure alignment between short-term and long-term strategy goals and its high-stake environment in the high-stake environments?
So I actually love consulting environments because it takes you out of your comfort zone and you have to go into a different organization and learn very quickly about their culture, about their plans, their vision, their goals, where they kind of veer off from each other within each department and each silo and how everything kind of breaks apart. Then you create the linkages from the outset and you kind of just start planting bugs in people's ear, like, hey, maybe you should consider this based on other things that you know from having observed anyone, but you can't necessarily tell them for fear to kind of protect relationships and to kind of start driving a better culture, right? So consulting environments are cool. So that said, so both consulting programs and operational units, alignment starts with understanding the organization's strategic intent at the highest level, then reverse engineering that vision into actionable objectives across time horizons.
Yeah.
Next, you must inspire your teams to see themselves as part of the vision. I've achieved this in the past through our formal evaluation system. So I'll conduct one-on-one sessions with each team member and teach them the organization's vision, their mission, and then I'll work my way down into like a visual depiction of all interrelated and value generating processes. So what that looks like is literally just like a flow chart with like titles that say, hey, this is how we create our training program. This is the value that we create for all the different organizations that we work for. And these are the activities that generate that value. And this is, you know, the smaller until you get down into the team specific processes that you have to perform to deliver on those. And so from there, connect the dots to what the specific projects and programs that we're tackling next. And at the end of it, each team member should know now the full scope of work that they're responsible for, how it ties into the bigger picture, how it supports the team, how it supports the organization, and why the program is a valuable endeavor to dedicate significant energy towards. From there, it's about establishing the right rhythm of planning and execution. So that rhythm now includes establishing weekly check-ins, aligning individual efforts with scheduled and priority activities, aligning key milestone checks with established governance meetings to update critical stakeholders, maintain visibility, and secure the necessary approvals to move forward with confidence. Short-term tactical moves, whether it's deploying a new system, initiating a training cycle, or engaging a key stakeholder, must be tied to a measurable outcome that feed into a strategic benefit. That linkage has to be visible, traceable, and deliberate. So I have kind of a fun example on this one too. Just last week, I was actually a member of the a jury panel for a case that happened locally. And at the end of the case, you know, we got the opportunity to speak to the prosecutor and the public defender just to give them feedback on what we saw. And so the example that I used for the prosecutor was, think of a stand-up comedian. Every single thing that comes out of a stand-up comedy skit is very deliberate. None of them will ever say something that is not going to serve their punchline. And therefore, when they're talking throughout the skit, when they are, you know, joking around with people, when they're engaging the crowd, they're asking for very specific tidbits of information that's going to serve their punchline in the end. So it's all a choreographed dance that they already know the outcome to. And so when we're thinking about linking everything, everything's got to be traceable to, you know, our punchline is the benefit. The punchline is the outcome. So when I'm engaging the stakeholder, what information and how am I going to present that information to the stakeholder to make sure that their response is going to drive progress towards project outcomes.
Yeah, I like the way you aligning everything together. And I like the analogy with the punchline and how the comedian talks and everything they say that is a purpose behind. You know,
Yeah.
that the difference between comedian and in my class when I'm talking, I don't know what I'm going to say and why I'm saying. Sometimes people laugh and just I say something. Is it purposely done? When I look back, probably not. It just came out of my mind.
Yeah.
It's all about to keep the class, together basically. Having. I mean, that's the purpose of a comedy show. So to keep everybody happy, laughing, and yeah, you get some free comedy in my class. Anyway.
Yeah. They were good classes.
Sorry?
They were good classes.
Good, thank you. So we have a question here. Can you, and this is for you, Joel, can you please speak about impact of certification on your career? What are the benefits?
So this is a funny one, right? Within the military, the certification itself is not career enhancing. What is career enhancing is your ability to do your job better and see things more strategically as a result of having studied enough to obtain the certification. And that's kind of my selling point for formal education in general. I know there's a lot of talk, especially now, about what the true value of education is. Do I need a college degree? Do I not to be able to go do this thing? Here's my take on it. It's, you have to have a certain skill to be able to do certain work, right? And I'm not saying, going to college to get an English degree is necessarily going to make me a CEO, but I know plenty of people who, have their masters and almost PhDs in ethics, and they became like very senior leaders in like very well-known private public companies, right?
Yeah.
And so the value of education is in the skills that you put together, that you learn, to obtain the degree. The value in specific, career-specific certifications is in the skills and knowledge that you learn to be able to apply those lessons into the work. So for me, it was about, all of the tactical things that I talked about in the previous question. Those were it. And then the ability to kind of use that to see more strategically in a way that enables even my bosses and their bosses to really understand the value of what it is that we're providing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certification, and not just for certificate, having good to have certificate, but more important, how it's going to help me to do my job better. So that's something, one should be coming or doing the certificate. Am I learning something? Am I going to use it for some purpose? Yeah, let's learn it and grow my organization. What are we doing? So and it's open up. So sometimes you know things, but you don't know the standard way of doing it. And PMI, which has created so many standards, learning them and applying them in your day-to-day program projects can only help you.
Yep.
All right, I do have a big essay question, big one. Let me read it out. Given in a project, often you are given a business case and told to deliver it as a PM. As PM, you're delivering products, also known as outputs of the projects. Now, once those outputs are delivered, the project is closed. But the benefits get delivered after some time in the BAU. My question: how do you, as a project manager, ensure that business case benefit actually get delivered and your project is already closed? What do you do to ensure that your business, the benefits, and can understand a timeline of where the benefit delivery process is happening? So,
That's a good question. I understand what they're driving for. What I would argue here is to kind of understand the culture that you're living in, right? So if you're living in a culture where project managers are being held responsible for the actual benefits and value that are supposed to be derived from the project you delivered, that's a culture that needs to change, right? Because project managers get paid to deliver things. So like if I task a project manager and a project team to deliver a specific software, you deliver it to all of the requirements, acceptance criteria, and expectations, and you deliver it on time. And then me as the program manager, or me as the sponsor, or me as the CEO, the department head, or whoever's supposed to serve, if I decide for whatever the reason not to implement that software that was delivered for me, or if the customer decides not to buy the thing that you've already delivered, that's a completely separate conversation, right? Because it's not that you failed to do something, or it's not that the product that you delivered did not meet the requirements or does not fulfill the function it was intended for. It's that somewhere downstream now, where the thing is supposed to be used, the person's just not using it. Now, as a program manager, it's incumbent upon you to kind of steer the culture, steer the relationships with whoever the customer is or whoever the internal stakeholders are that are supposed to receive said product, to drive its use, or to at least identify early on in the project whether or not those benefits are not actually going to be gained from that product, right? Because we see it all the time. And it's in the specific roles that I've been in, I see it a lot more with software, and it's usually like a new software implementation where something will be, asked for, requested, they'll put it into the works to get project managers working on it. They deliver the thing, but for whatever reason, whether leadership changed out, executive sponsors are not there anymore, it's a new executive sponsor, and they want to do something completely different, go in a completely different direction, that's okay. Just understand that just because that sponsor did not like that specific product because they weren't there when it got created, doesn't mean there's no inherent value to that product. And through that, the program manager then has to advocate for the project manager and say, hey, look, the software that they delivered was outstanding, and it definitely fulfilled everything it needed to fulfill. If we had given it the light of day, we would have most probably seen the benefits that we were expecting from it. But because the organization is taking a different direction now, it's just, we're just going to have to close it and, put it on a shelf somewhere else so we can do this new thing. It doesn't mean the project manager was bad. It just means that the timing of it didn't really align with what the new stakeholders or the new customers now wanted.
Yeah, and to add on top of it, what you said, it's all good. Thank you. As in the program management, when you go through for PgMP, we do talk about benefit manager life cycle, which covers your benefit management plan, where you could talk about how we're going to deliver the benefit, and then we're talking about what do you call benefit sustainment plan. So benefit can be sustained when it's gone or delivered to the operations.
Right.
So with their partnership, we're going to develop that document as a program manager so that they know they're ready with delivering or sustaining the benefit. And then, of course, transition plan talks about how and when the transition will happen, ensuring they have the required training and all whatever they need to sustain the benefit.
Yep.
So your PgMPs go for you. So if you have not done the PgMP, yeah, get the PgMP done. All right, thank you. Thanks for the question, guys. Keep going, keep bringing more questions. All right, my next question is, can you walk us through how you approach performance measurement in programs, especially when operation agility is critical?
So the first thing to understand is where agility comes from, right? Agility is to move quickly and responsibly. To do so, you must understand where you are in time and space, where the current trajectory will get you, and then figure out what needs to change in order to achieve the new objectives.
Yep.
With that in mind, you need meaningful performance metrics defined throughout the life of the program to make honest progress assessments along the way. An easy way to do it is to use the work breakdown structure or some variation of it. The structure will usually depict the meaningful work packages or projects from a program perspective that are needed to achieve meaningful progress toward outcomes and benefits. While I'm a huge fan of the critical path method, my organization is not. Therefore, I go straight from work breakdown structure to building out roadmaps and calendars. So this is where performance measurement starts to blend in with the art of program management. So I analyze each project to understand their work packages and interdependencies with the rest of the program and build a mental critical path model. So I have project health checks built into the program schedule where I gave most of my project updates. The checks are a mix of governance meetings and regularly scheduled reports. This is where I evaluate the schedule and cost performance and identify operational risks to be managed at the program level. Now, on the schedule performance side, this is where it turns into a check on progress against the schedule and critical path. If a scheduled event starts slipping, I quickly determine what other activities are impacted, make a judgment call on whether the program or project will be delayed, and implement corrective action if needed. On the budget side, I evaluate if additional resources are needed to complete the scheduled task. If more resources are needed, then I evaluate if reserves are needed to cover the difference. If the cost is significantly higher beyond the allocated reserves, then it becomes a discussion with the program sponsor where I prepare the recommended courses of action. So the operative thing there, and like the key takeaway really, is that it's a lot easier to adjust from a known point than it is to completely invent the wheel from the get-go. And what I mean by that is, right, if you don't have like a meaningful roadmap, if you don't have like a critical path kind of already determined, if you don't have things on schedule, there's no real way for you to know whether or not you can take on a new thing, because you don't know what's been completed. You don't know the rhythm with which you have to maintain to be able to adjust to whatever the new thing is that came down. Having everything already on a calendar enables you really to see visually whether you do or do not have the capacity to do something else. And then you can communicate that very clearly to all stakeholders involved. And you shouldn't approach it as, hey, we cannot do this because we're just tapped out. That's really the wrong way to do it, because you're not inspiring the confidence in your leadership to have them understand that you did the math and you did the homework to know for a fact that you cannot do this. And then you have to explain the operational risk and the impact. Can't do this because the specific activity is not going to be completed to be able to make time for that new work, which in turn means we're not going to be able to deliver this software by this critical point in time.
Yeah, so performance measurement is the key for when you're running any project program or anything we do, because if you don't know Let's say if you drive, going a long drive, and you have a plan, you need to know where we supposed to be, where we are now,
Right.
and that looking at the dashboard, okay, as per dashboard, we should be here, but we are here. We are behind schedule. I have a schedule. So one of the important thing is to define what measurement we're going to have. What is the performance expectation organization have from your program? And that can be between you and your sponsor and steering committee, come up with that.
Right.
Yeah, so then of course we have right measurement tools, techniques. We're going to measure them, capture them. And if you have a good PMI system, of course we all need it. And a good PMI system, we can track it, we can even look at the dashboard and maybe drill down why we're having this problem, what can we do to improve it. So yeah. So next question actually very similar to what we're talking here, and thanks for the question again. Can you explain value management and how that relate to your output and the program objectives? My point, I do not understand what value management is and how it fits.
Okay. So value management, and this one is going to be a little more difficult for me because the Army does not deal in profit, right? And so we have to get a little creative with understanding exactly what the value is created, right?
So value is not only how much money you're making, of course we talk tangible value and there's intangible value as well, what you do. Maybe it's more intangible. It's not about making money. Maybe it's more about value for money.
Right. So you have to, kind of like with everything else, you have to start with the end in mind, what it is that you're trying to get out of a specific thing. And then you kind of adjust course from there. So you have your projects, you have your program, the project delivers the outputs, the program starts kind of generating benefits based on when the project deliverables start to take. And you compare that then with the overall, and this is where it gets into portfolio management as well, with the overall aim of the organization and what it is that they are trying to gain from a specific thing. So I think if we take like Starbucks, for example, they're trying to increase revenue by changing the culture of how customers go into the store and the activities that they do within the store. So they're reducing the amount of time that customers spend doing non-profit generating activities inside of the stores by cutting down on, by telling people, hey, you have X amount of time to actually sit here and like do whatever it is that you're doing, and oh, by the way, you actually have to buy a product from us. So the value therein, you have to, and this is the importance of understanding what is delivered at the project, program, and portfolio levels, right? The project delivers the specific output. Hey, if it's a new policy that says the customers can't just sit around all day without buying anything, the deliverable is the policy itself. At the program level, you want to get the benefits from it. All right, what are the benefits? We want to see an increase in sales of, X percentage. And then you go to the portfolio level and you say, okay, well, we're trying to increase shareholder value. We're trying to increase the amount of profit generating activities that occur within the store. We're doing this by X, Y, and Z. And one of those efforts is to reduce the amount of idle time customers are spending without spending money. And so you put forward the policy, you evaluate the benefits, and then by a certain time and space, you determine whether the value that you specified for that specific program is actually bearing fruit. Are you getting back what it is that you wanted to get from having implemented that? If you are, great, continue on. If you are not, then it's back into the drawing board, conducting more analysis and a new or updated business case to determine how it is that you're going to increase shareholder value.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, next one is, it's not a question. Actually, I will give you a video. Okay, my next question is, what's your playbook for balancing top-down mandates with the ground level realities of resource constraints, as we know, changing priorities, and on the fly decision making?
Yeah. So communication is an art form. I preach that day in and day out, and that is a very critical tool to be able to manage, especially at the program portfolio level. The tough part about balancing mandates is that top-down guidance doesn't always come with an adequate explanation attached to it. And they also tend to be disconnected from the operational risk associated with shifting priorities away from the current roadmap. That said, communication is a two-way street. So just like I expect my project managers to keep me informed of the good and the bad, I need to communicate both to my senior leadership as well. Yep. That typically looks like during regular health checks and informal discussions, an assessment of the program as it stands, whether it's on or off glide path, and then I touch on operational risk and issues, along with planned mitigation actions or responses in progress. Finally, I mentioned whether the program and project teams have the capacity to do more or not. So like if a project is performing well, but I know that it only take like a minor added activity to derail their progress, I'll mention that to the governance board, to the sponsor, or to any key stakeholder that, wants to listen. And I'll just tell them, hey, like, thank you for the compliments. We're doing well right now. And I think, we assess everything is on track. However, we are pretty tapped out. We are shorthanded. We are short-staffed. And I really do think like one more thing can derail everything that we have in the pipeline right now. So what this does is the knowledge arms them with the understanding they need to, deliver sensible mandates, meaning that they can actually shift priorities and reduce the scope of lower priority projects to generate the capacity needed to focus on the new mandates. So the worst case scenario here is that they'll add new requirements without taking any away. So despite understanding those capacity limits. So in that scenario, that's where I have to, put on my project program manager hat and say, hey, like I need to start assuming some personal risk here to decide which things we're going to do well, which things not so good, and which things not at all. So I balance the espoused organizational priorities versus the new mandates coming down. So, if the CEO came out and said, hey, these are my priorities, but some of the mandates seem kind of misaligned, then I'll just make the judgment call and say, okay, well, the CEO wants this, and I don't think this really answers the mail. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other thing anyway, and I'm just going to go and communicate what it is that I did to the stakeholders. So they can't jump on me about it before I jump on them about it and say, hey, like, got it, you wanted this, however, CEO wants this, and this is how I'm going to get after what you wanted at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, this can be more into do with the portfolio management, because that's where the decision making happens. And you need to, okay, if CEO has some new vision, and happen, because the reason we have CEO is so they can see something which you can't see, and based on that we have new initiatives. So we need to see if this is aligned with the current strategies of the organization, and it's going to give expected value. Yeah, you do all the analysis and give them the feedback, and yeah, we can, or we should, or maybe we have other project program going on, they are more beneficial, maybe they don't see it, maybe give them picture what others can give, but some, because as you said, they are creating all the vision, mission, goals, objective, sometimes without realizing the reality of operations team, the lack of resources, lack of funding, lack of the changing priorities, and the amount of pressure the team is always deliver. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And next question I will take from the audience. Okay, often PMs are subject to dubious situations around your project programs due to company politics. Ooh. How do you handle the political aspect in companies?
So the way to handle that is to kind of tie everything back to value and need. If you need, so I mean, you can do an assessment of the team, the projects you're handling now, and what you're going to have to handle in the future, and talent management cycles with human resources when they're scheduled to leave, the people who are kind of due for a promotion and probably like are looking elsewhere to get a higher role, or someone that just kind of needs some kind of change. You look at that and you compare the capacity assessment. So do you actually need another person to fill in the work, to enable someone to do something different. And kind of from that standpoint, then you start generating requirements of, all right, well, these are the actual qualities that if I have to hire someone, these are the qualities that I need that person to have. Now, when diversity now or anything DEI comes into the question, there's a couple different flavors of it, right? So let's just kind of distinguish between affirmative action and DEI. So affirmative action was something, if I'm not mistaken, was created in the 60s and 70s as a way to force minority populations into positions of higher employment that they wouldn't normally have, because the institutions of the time were literally just structured in a way that did not allow them to gain the skills necessary to get there. So if you think about segregation, what kind of schools minority groups had to go to, and therefore what kind of education they missed out on because of it. So that was affirmative action. And from what I understand, affirmative action has already been outlawed, and therefore you cannot make a hire simply because someone is of a minority group. That's one. So now we get into DEI. The way I understand that is it's really just saying you can't not consider someone or not hire someone because of any of the categories that fall into DEI. So if you have applicants in your pool, or if you have like a very kind of structured method by which you evaluate candidates to be able to fill a role, just make sure that whatever that process is does not inadvertently bias out anybody that would fall under kind of DEI categories. And what that means is, just because I like this example, right? On LinkedIn, if you look, and I learned this when I was taking my professional, or when I was buying my first suit for my transition 2 years ago. That never happened. I went to Men's Warehouse and I said, I want a black top. And they looked at me and said, okay, cool. Well, are you going to an event? I'm like, no, this is for my first civilian job. And they said, oh no, you don't want to wear a black top. And so I asked them, like, why is that? They said, well, black is usually for, balls, events, social events, and things like that, whereas gray is usually the color for professional settings. And that blew my mind, right? Because I'm hearing as well that people will make hiring decisions based on the color of the jacket. If you wear a blazer, you wear it to the interview. And I'm thinking about this, okay, well, look at my background. I grew up in inner city New York, and then I moved overseas for a little bit, came back to the US and, minority communities. Then, I joined the Army, been in the Army my entire adult life since I was 17 years old, right? How am I supposed to know that the color of my top is the thing that did not get me hired? I can't know that, right? So DEI really just says, don't make my non-hiring decision based on the color of the jacket that I was wearing. Don't make this non-hiring decision based on the other categories that are included in the DEI program, because that is an unfair hiring practice. It doesn't mean, me wearing a black top does not mean that I cannot do this job. It just means that I'm wearing a black top.
Yep. And given that I'm wearing the black top, black jacket, so I'm not. All right. So thank you, and we have to move on to other questions as well. So, in what ways have your experience in military and public sector programs shaped your approach to stakeholder engagement and benefit relation today?
Being in the military, I think stakeholder engagement becomes a little bit easy because all of the positions are so structured and straightforward. And through my networking efforts, I've learned that the civilian companies are not, or public sector is not necessarily like that, right? Like the influence and authority is not held by individuals, and especially as you get into kind of department heads, tends to outweigh what an outsider might think it should be, right? And so within the military, you have the rank structure, and then you have positional authority. You have regulations that say, hey, the commander is the guy that's actually responsible for everything in the world that happens. And then the operations section, that staff section, department, whatever we're calling it, they are the only people that can task you to do something. And so, if the operations is not the office that is telling, a subordinate or another staff section or department, hey, go do this, by a written order, then you can typically or technically get away with not doing it. Now, you do have to play the political game, and like it's not going to end well necessarily for you if you're not a team player. But that being the case, we still have kind of these clear lines of influence and authorities that tell us who can do what. So that's one thing. Two, kind of diving into it, learn to include and not include certain people based on the need for that person to be involved in something, especially as information security becomes a thing. And so you ensure that you're communicating the things that are actually needed for the individuals that need the information to be able to make a decision, make a hiring decision, do something in any way that can impact the program. For determining then and using that knowledge to help in public sector to be able to, or private sector to be able to manage stakeholders effectively is kind of a similar thing. Right now, you can kind of see positionally and based on the relationships that each individual has with one another, like where the lines of influence are, where the lines of authority are, and then from that you can start asking and deriving what everyone's individual interest is in a specific project or program, and then using that knowledge to kind of turn the balance of culture, perception, effort, energy towards something that's actually going to benefit you and your program.
Yeah, so I'm sure from your experience you've gone through and you learned a lot, and that can be definitely help you in the current situation, stakeholder engagement, which is the key of any success, success of any programs,
Right.
and dealing with benefit relation. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. My next question to you, can you share an instance where a technical intervention prevented a strategic program failure?
Yes.
And what lesson does it offer in hindsight?
So proactive stakeholder engagement, right? So there was a point in time where I had taken over, the office. I became the chief of operations, right upon the time where all of the senior leadership of the organization had left to go somewhere else because they had to do a different mission at that point in time. So I got given the keys to the castle, and I got told, "Hey, don't mess this up." I was like, "All right, cool, I'll try." So the very first thing that happened is, there was a new product that we were trying to field in the organization that was being tested in the field, and it had a very strict timeline. So the conflict that we ran into there is that the senior leaders of the time, they wanted to make sure, and this is kind of Army culture as a whole started shifting toward, they wanted to make sure that service members and soldiers, they had there was a break between exercises enough to be able to give them enough downtime and enough rest time, kind of time back to themselves to be able to kind of ensure we're not wasting their time with something that could have been done on a duty date, for example. And this particular project, had already been delayed a couple of times to try to kind of adhere to that. But now, because this equipment fielding had to do a lot with a private sector company that was fielding something by contract to the Army. Those contracts have very strict timelines they have to adhere to, and they had already been delayed a few times, but then we were backing up against the no later than time by which the contract would have just been canceled. And there was a lot of energy in the organization and in the higher organizations to delay it even further, get some weekend time off for the soldiers to be able to go back and enjoy it, because they did just come from having been executing another mission too. So I saw this and I talked to the project manager in charge, and he was looking at it. He was like, "Hey, like if this happens, like this contract will get busted. It will fall." So I took the reins and I said, "Okay, well, like this is my responsibility now. I have to start communicating." So there was an email chain that was already going around. There were a lot of senior stakeholders. A lot of them outranked me by like 3 to 4 ranks at the point in time. But I got them all together. I explained in very high detail, because I didn't know who any of them were. I was brand new to the organization. I explained in very high detail everything I understood about it, and then said, "Hey, look, like I understand what everyone's trying to do, and we do, and this is important. However, delaying this just a little bit, it's like I was saying before, communicate the good and the bad, and communicate your capacity. Delaying this just one more day will literally bust the contract and we will fail. And your bosses will also not be huge fans of that. So I sent it, got immediate responses back by some very senior stakeholders, and I looked at those and I said, okay, these are the people who I need to go pay office visits to be able to explain and take care of their concerns one by one, make them feel heard. So I went, did office visits with everybody involved. I explained it to them. It turned into kind of more of a venting session than really a directive session to do something they shouldn't have done, which in turn kind of saved the relationship between headquarters, saved reputations between headquarters, ensured everybody understood what was really at stake and the need for continuing on with the roadmap as it currently stood. And, we delivered successfully.
That's fantastic. That's what you are hired for. You're doing a great job. All right, so guys, I have just shared the PDU code. Please check the chat. So take the note, and you can use it, and you can earn 1 PDU from this session. And if you are watching this as a video, you have to send out a message to the team, and we will be happy to share the PDU code. All right, so I have many questions. Please stop questions now because we don't have time to go through all of these questions. But before that, I do have questions which are shared during registration. So let me read out for you, Joel. And thank you, Pankaj, you are here. And thank you for, you are my PfMP student. And good to see you here. Okay, how does you review benefit realized through the program with your leadership? How truly does leadership goes by actual versus aimed or planned?
So we have a lot of governance meetings, rhythm of business meetings that we do through the week. And at our level, we're at the portfolio level. It's a lot, and there's more to review than we have time for during the week. So we have this thing where there's certain meetings we have that we only do once every 2 weeks, once every month, once every quarter, once every semi-annually, or something to that effect. So the frequency is different. So when we're creating then the requirements and the governance framework behind the programs and the projects, we really have to look at what are the key milestones, the key metrics, the key health checks to review at which frequency to make sure that we get it added into the rhythm of business events that are already happening through the governance process. Because leadership understands too that like they have to keep a pulse on everything that's going on. Otherwise, how do you know what's going on? How do you know that you're going to be delivering? How do you know that what you created that organization for is actually fulfilling its purpose? You don't. So you have to have all these meetings to really like learn from your organization what it is that's going on through and through. So as much as possible, and it's always a dance, right? And so what I envy about the private sector is just how long leadership has the potential for staying in place, right? Like Satya Nadella, how long has that guy been in charge of Microsoft? Jeff Bezos, how long was that guy in charge of Amazon before he stepped down and gave somebody else the reins? Starbucks, how long is that guy going to be in position before he actually steps down and gives somebody else the reins? And it goes on and on. And having those people in positions for long periods of time enables them to really generate the long-term strategic vision for the organization and actually stick to it. The challenge that we have is that we change out key leaders so often that priorities change. And that's part of the problem. The other problem is that we are kind of a global organization answering to global needs at any given point in time. And so as those things change, and this is something we did kind of hit on earlier too, we need the organizational agility to be able to adjust those new demand signals. So how well do these things actually stay aligned with organizational goals and priorities? I would say that it's very nuanced, and you can make the case that we are always aligned with what they want to do, because at the end of the day, there is a CEO somewhere, there is a board somewhere that says this is what the organization needs to deliver. And as things start to change, we really do our best to analyze all of the current programs we have in play, figure out what are still value generating activities and which one we are going to need to adjust to be able to fit with shifting organizational priorities. You are there to serve the organization. Just like in the private sector, you are there to serve the organization. You have to look at it through that lens.
Let me take another question here. Thank you. Thank you for this previous question and response. Yeah. For someone who may be looking to follow similar educational journey like yours, and who also perhaps may want to fill your shoes professionally one day, what is some advice you would like to give, or some advice you would have benefited from when you started?
Yeah, be hungry, be absolutely hungry to do all the things. Learn your job expertly, learn what everyone else around you does, and learn how everything fits together. Be willing to do the thing that nobody else wants to do. You know, in the Army, there's plenty of that. There's this project. Oh yeah, nobody wants to touch that. Yeah, you have to be the guy to go and say, give me that project. I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Exactly. And that makes a huge difference, you know, when you make it possible and people look, oh wow, they actually did it. And other people were scared of taking on, being, you know, fear of failures. Yeah. And you learn and you did it, and you look back actually to career. Okay, this is what happened in my career, and it changed my trajectory altogether. So yeah, be humble and be ready, and keep learning. Actually, it's not just what you learn in when you're growing up. Keep learning from, PMI has number of certificates, and PgMP, PfMP, and PMO, CP, and many others. You can only benefit out of this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we do have a few more questions. Let me see how many we can take. Are you okay to stay back?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will take this question. If you have a team member that is underperforming, what's your process to get them to improve without micromanaging them?
You can't want something more than somebody else does. I'll start with that. You have to determine the cause of their low performance. If it's something that they just don't know or understand, figure out how to get them that knowledge. If they just don't have the initiative, coach them, mentor them through what initiative actually is and how that looks like to everyone around them. If there's something going on at home, offer them some grace, some advice. If you don't have the emotional intelligence to kind of work through that, offer them a means by which they can kind of work through it. If they're just coming in, they're not motivated because they don't care about the work and they don't care about the company, explain to them, hey, this is what you got hired for. This is the value we drive for the organization. And in turn, the organization, people don't buy our products because they want us to survive. They buy our products because it serves them in some way, shape, or form, and this is how we're serving them.
Exactly.
If you can't jump on the bandwagon and provide that product for that customer, for that organization, then the tone of the discussion has to shift to say, okay, well, now we have to start talking about whether or not this role, this job, this company is a good fit for you. And you can do it one of two ways. You can do it in the way of kind of fear-driven, not my favorite, but it is a method. And say, hey, if you don't pony up, I'm going to fire you. Or you can kind of take a more understanding approach, more kind of emotional intelligence approach, and say, hey, tell me what are your interests, what things you do actually care for, why it is that this work does not align with what it is that you're trying to achieve for your own self or to your values, what would you like to see change in the world, and then kind of guide them, coach them, mentor them through actually getting into a position like that. Because now what you've just done is you've motivated someone. So even if after discovering their values, they still find that that company is not for them. Now they have someone in their park, and they know they have someone by their side that actually cares about their future and getting them developed in the way that they need to be. And so at a minimum, they'll start working for you, even though they know that they're going to leave the company soon. That's one. Two, they're going to leave the company soon now. So now you can make a more deliberate changing process where, this employee departs at a place and time of your choosing that enables you to hire somebody new and have this person train them. which is going to be very beneficial because the onboarding process, depending on what you're teaching them, could be very long. It could be very costly. But if they're doing it with goodwill, then that can really just shorten the onboarding cycle and save you some money in the process to be able to get this person doing the right thing for the company that you need.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you for detailed explanation. Yes, you do first thing, try to motivate, show them the big picture, and connect them what they're doing with what the organization is looking for, and give them enough opportunity to learn and do some, if they're missing out on training, guidance, you kind of your responsibility. Because remember, hiring and firing is not easy. One is quite costly. So if you can minimize that process, do that, give them enough opportunity and allow them to grow, and sometimes give them some time. Okay, they're new from the uni, they don't know many things. Okay, you give them handholding and support them. You let them make mistake and guide them how they can improve further.
Right.
There should not be fear of, okay, if I don't want to take responsibility. What if I fail? If penalizing is one thing, can you give them opportunity so they can learn from that and they can grow themselves?
Yeah.
All right, great. Let me take another question. Senior managers often have change of mind with project. What if they pursue a change, but say you have to deliver in the same timeline with little extra budget, which is not adequate?
It's the capacity cup, right? I mean, there's only so much cup, there's only so much water. There's only so much you can do with the resources that you have, right? If you're telling me to, drive a car, like I would drive the car, but I need gas to be able to drive it. If there's no gas in the car, I mean, I can sit in there, I can honk the horn, I can, kick the gas all day long. I'm not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. You need to have, when somebody comes to you at extra scope, you need to advise them, look, you want me to add this, what do you don't want me to do? Because that has to go. Because we have limited capacity, limited people, limited time. If they are ready to support you by having required money and time, we can take it and be upfront. Let them know if we try to push more, the chance the quality we get impacted. Highlight that as risk. So as a project manager, program manager, highlighting the risk and impact, they should know about it. Otherwise, they keep going. Follow change control process.
Communication is an art form, and it is a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. All right, quickly, keeping short. As a PM, you make an error by mistake, and do you inform board or try to fix it as much as you can, and hope no one notices?
Try to fix as much as you can. I don't necessarily try to hide problems, but on the same token, not everyone has to know about every single problem that exists, right? At a certain point, I have project managers. I expect you to handle project level risks and issues that arise. Would I like to know about it? I mean, sure, I like reading stuff and I like knowing the challenges that you're going through because I use that as a developmental tool as well, just to make sure that you're growing and on glide path. But I don't necessarily try to deliberately hide something, right? Like if there's a big problem, look at it more as hey, I have a problem. This person may actually have resources to help me solve it, as opposed to saying, I need to look perfect and look like I have no problems at all. In all of my projects, I always, raise the flag and I say, hey, this thing is developing and it could be on my critical path because of it. I might have a problem. If I do, I'm going to contact you at this time by this means to request this resource.
Yeah. All right. What project method have you adopted? Waterfall, Agile, hybrid, or which method do you feel was most, help you or successful outcome?
I don't think any single methodology is superior to the other one. I think they all have their pros and cons, and you really need to look at the needs of your program, the needs of your project. Will you benefit from the waterfall method? If so, use the waterfall method. Will you benefit more from an agile method? I mean, I think it's widely accepted now that anything software has to be agile because that stuff changes so much, and then the user stories change so much and so frequently that, like, if you think you're going to do something like rigidly in a waterfall method with software, it's just going to crash and burn.
Yeah. And again, it depends on the type of work you're doing. You cannot apply Agile to some of the infrastructure work. So you need to be careful about in the selection. And
Yeah.
There's another question, but I think that's can you? I will not. I want you to spend time on that. Can you explain portfolio management? Yes, of course, we can talk about it. It's a big chapter. We can talk about it, and rather, I think about doing a PfMP course or something, or read standard for portfolio management, or maybe bring this question for the next event. Happy to take. But thank you for your questions, everybody, and the questions we got. It's appreciative. More question means discussion. And thank you, Joel, for your eagerness to keep going even after the time. Thank you. And
Absolutely.
you were very clear and precise in your answer. And I'm sure a lot of people benefited out of this and continue to learn from your experience. And anything else you'd like to say?
Not much, just stay hungry. Understand you are there for the organization. You're delivering something of value to an organization and to the customers in which you serve. So always keep that at the forefront of your mind, and that's the thing that needs to drive you to make sure that you get the science behind this management very, very well, the science and the art.
Exactly. And if you have any question, clarification, you can reach out to Joel by LinkedIn. I'm sure he's okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you need my support and assistance to achieve any certificate, happy to help you out, whether you are using my app, exam simulator, or any product. Like to see that you, as you said, stay hungry and learn, keep learning and grow yourself.
Yep.
So to book my time is very straightforward. Talk to Dharam. If you want to talk to me, talk to Dharam. www.talktodharam.com. I will be happy to spend my time and take you through journey. And other thing before we leave, Tatiana, who's here as well, she's listening. She will be here as a guest. She will be replacing Joel, and I'm sure she will be more exciting than what you. I mean, not to disregard, but you did really great. And yeah, you should join. And now this time you asking questions.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Guy, for staying extra time, and looking forward to the next event very, very soon. Take care.